everybody, it's Ann Kaplan from Mom Me, your awesome resource for help in mothering from conception to college. Wherever you are in your mothering journey, I'm here for you, we're all here for you, and today and this week, we are talking about timeout, beyond timeout. Taking our discipline strategies and making them super effective, making them fit our style, and getting them to be something that's mindful the way that we are. Mindful moms, we don't want to just be doing something that's rote or not working or whatever. So today what I want to talk about is what are the ways that we can take timeout to a whole different level? What even is timeout technically? Probably, if you're like me, you say timeout all the time, but when I actually look at like what is officially timeout, I'm not doing it at all, and I never would because I don't agree with it. So we want to have the idea of timeout, but what do we want to do with it, and how do we want to use it more effectively for us? What's great about timeout? What's not great about timeout, and how can we enhance it? And I also want to talk to you guys about how to make this work for older kids too. We think of timeout for a toddler, but guess what, guys? I'm an adult and I need a timeout sometimes. So it's kind of crazy for us to think that older kids don't need a timeout sometimes. We all need a timeout sometimes, right? So what I really want to talk about is sometimes we get bogged down in semantics. Like, is this technically timeout? Or maybe it's this new strategy called time in, or maybe this other strategy called the uh-oh song from Love and Logic, or, you know, maybe it's this other thing called the calm down corner or whatever. You know what, really, it's not about the name. It's not about if it's officially timeout. It's not about really picking one specific subscribed thing that you're going to keep doing. All of the things that we're talking about doing when we talk about timeout, it doesn't matter what the name is that you use for it. Timeout, or whatever strategy you want to call it, is just a way for us to non-violently, non-aggressively help our kids take a break or interrupt their negative behavior. And usually it includes some sort of connection we're making with our kids, and often usually includes a little bit of a heads up beforehand, like, hey buddy, what you're doing isn't okay, or this is the rule of our house, or if you do that, it's going to be a timeout, or whatever word you want to call it. So whether you want to call it the calm down corner, or the timeout, or the time in, or the uh-oh song, or exactly how you want to administer it, the concept of timeout includes this interrupting of negative behavior and this strategy that is non-violent, non-aggressive way of communicating with our kids. Now, some people don't like the traditional timeout paradigm. I don't. Because it involves, first of all, involves repeated reminding and warning your kid before you actually do anything about it. It often involves counting, like, okay, you're going to get a timeout. Okay, 3, 2, 1, or 1, 2, 3, timeout, or whatever. And also, because timeout was originally kind of propagated as this sort of opposite or alternative to physical punishment like spanking, it really does have a punishment mindset. You know, they recommend in traditional timeout models, they traditionally recommend that you put your kid in a place that's not very fun and it doesn't have any toys, or clean their whole room out of toys, or find a different place that's going to be a timeout that's not really fun, or they're not going to enjoy it. It can be kind of rigid, like, oh, don't give your kids, you have to give your kids exactly the number of minutes of timeout as their age, or they have to hit a certain timer. You're supposed to have a timer and clear view and all of that stuff. And the other thing that I don't personally care for about timeout is that you're supposed to talk about it afterwards in this way that's like, now, do you know why you were in timeout? Let's talk about it, buddy. And I'm going to show you later on in this video and later on this week that I really feel like those things are actually counterproductive. Because what we really need to understand about our kids when they're misbehaving, whether they are a toddler or an older kid or whatever, is that we actually scientifically know from studies and all that stuff that punishment isn't really the best way to get our kids to change their behavior. We want to punish our kids because we're upset and we feel like they've done something wrong and they should have this feeling of remorse or shame or regret or whatever. Even if you don't want to say out loud that that's what you want your kid to feel, on some level that's what you want. And that's when we get into this punishment mindset. But it's really not as effective as just teaching your kid to deal with their emotions and different tools to dealing with the way that they're behaving. So, you know, the things that I like about timeout are the things that I just told you. It's nonviolent. It's a way to interrupt negative behavior. It's a way to have a connection with your kid that's not aggressive and all of that stuff. But the things that you're going to see this week in the group that I'm posting of variations on timeout, I think are far more effective. So for example, there's something called a time in. I personally don't find this effective with my kids, but I know a lot of parents who love it, which is that when your kid is misbehaving, instead of banishing them to another area or something like that, you sit with them in your lap or next to you, you talk with them about what's going on. You're really teaching them that not that what they did is bad or that they should never do that again or that they were naughty, but that you're teaching them that, like, hey, when you feel these emotions or you're behaving this way, it's totally cool to recognize that and literally put yourself in timeout almost. Like, take a break. Let's talk about it. Let's work through these feelings. So, you know, that's what we mean when we say a time in. If you do Love and Logic, you know the uh-oh song. Like, uh-oh, that's a really big bummer. You did something that you weren't supposed to do. And now you need a little time by yourself in your room. Or we say, like, you need a little alone time. And sometimes I do say timeout, but I'm actually not doing the official timeout or whatever. Also, if you guys have heard of this technique called the calm down corner, I kind of really like it actually. It's a little area in whatever, in your house somewhere that has things that can kind of calm your kid down, whether it's like sensory stuff, little quiet toys, a book, a stuffy or whatever. And it's a place that they go or on their own, or if you feel like they need to go there, and they hang out there for their time to regroup and rest. And they're not really like sent to a separate room or anything like that sometimes. So, you know, with toddlers and stuff like that, that can be really, really helpful. And you hopefully can see that as your child grows up, these strategies can evolve. Like, does your kid as a 13-year-old need a calm down corner? No. But if they've been doing this kind of behavior to handle like really extreme emotions in the past, they know already, they've been taught this whole time, like, ugh, I'm feeling really amped up right now. I know what I need to do. I need to calm down. I know what I do to calm down. I'm going to go and do it. Maybe it's going sitting on the couch and reading a book. Maybe it's going and being by myself in my room. Maybe it's just sitting quietly, looking out a window, whatever it is. You're teaching your kids strategies all along on how to regulate, how to deal, how to recognize, how to understand their feelings without shame and regret and things like that. And that to me is the most fundamental issue with timeout. We often are punishing, and that's not teaching our kids anything for future, except that this was naughty, don't do it again, or you're going to feel really, really bad. But guess what, you guys? The bad feelings, or the bad thoughts, or the, you know, not so great stuff that's going on with our kids that causes them to have those bad behaviors, those things aren't going away, you guys. So if we don't teach our kids not only what behavior is acceptable, but like how to get to that behavior, we're really doing our kids a disservice, and we're doing ourselves a disservice, because all we're doing is buying ourselves more and more and more times of dealing with this behavior from our kids. So if we can switch our headspace from punishment to redirection and helping, we're going to actually get way more results that we want. It's just like everything else in motherhood. It's just so annoyingly ironic. The more that you give up the goal that you had of getting your kid to behave a certain way and feel, you know, that they did something naughty so they don't do it again, the more you actually get the result that you want. So, you know, those variations, and I'm going to be posting actually information about each of those variations all week long in the group. So you've already seen one of the variations I posted earlier today, which is just choices. Like, instead of putting your kid in timeout and saying, you know, think about what you did, you put them in their room and there's like a list of choices, like things you could do in timeout. Could be read a book, could be just take a few deep breaths, could be look out the window, whatever. You're telling your kid, like, I get it. You can be in your room. You can actually enjoy being in your room. That's not the reason why you're in here. You're in here because you need a chance to be on your own and just regroup. We all feel that way sometimes. There's no shame in it, you know. So those kinds of variations we're going to see in the group as things go on. And I want to talk for a second about big kids, because when we talk about timeout, a lot of times my clients who have older kids, they just kind of like turn off their brains, because it's like, oh, timeout, that's for a toddler who's hitting or biting. But like I said in the beginning of this video, you guys, everybody needs a timeout, including me. And I know if you're a mom watching this video, you felt like you need a timeout before too. So it's real pure folly for us to look at our older kids and think they don't need a timeout. They just might need it in a different way that's more commensurate with their age and respectful of them and not condescending to them. To say, uh-oh, you made a mistake, what a bummer, to a 13-year-old, that's just mockery, okay? But I can definitely say to my 13-year-old son, you know what, buddy, that behavior is inappropriate, and I think you need to be alone right now. And guess what? It works. And that's a timeout for a 13-year-old. And guess what? Even my 13-year-old, if I need to, I can still pick him up. Never happens, but I could if I needed to. But my point is, you know, everybody needs a timeout. Don't think that just because your kid has gotten older or his behavior has gotten like less recognizable as like toddler behavior or clear within the definitions of what we think of when we think of misbehavior, don't think that those things preclude your kid from needing a little help figuring out how to self-regulate and needing a little reminder that, like, you know what, sometimes we just need to be alone. Maybe we're overwhelmed, maybe we're overstimulated, maybe we're just like in a really bad mood and we're taking out on the people around us. But the most important message I want you guys to get from this broadcast and from this week is it's not about picking a strategy and blindly sticking to it like, you know, like something that you're just like in a cult, okay? It doesn't work that way. We put all this information out here in the Mom Me group. We put all this information out here this week, especially about discipline, so that you can look and see what resonates with you. You know, there's certain things that there's no way I'm ever going to do with my kids. But I know that other moms are going to love it. So my philosophy, like, I'm a huge proponent of love and logic. I teach it to my clients all the time. It's worked like a dream with my family. But do I follow it to the letter? Absolutely not. There's parts of it that just don't resonate for me. They're not me. And that's why finding yourself in motherhood is so important, you guys. The more that you know exactly who you are, what you're about, what your values are, what goals you have for your family, the vision that you have for the family vibe that you want, the answers to these questions about like what strategy is right for me will come through to you in such stark clarity, you guys. If you're my client, you hear me talk about it all the time. We need to craft your compass. We need to craft your compass because the answers to all the other questions that you guys have for me come right from that compass. And that's why all my videos are like, well, this might work for you, that might work for you. Because unless I'm sitting with you one-on-one, I don't know exactly what the right strategy is for you. But my whole goal is to empower you guys to find that for yourselves and know that you have resources and you're not alone when you need to find that way. I hope that's helpful for you guys. I love you so much. And on Thursday, I'm going to be talking even more about timeout. I'm going to be talking about success tips, whatever strategy you pick for your discipline strategy, whether it's timeout, whether it's beyond timeout, whether it's natural consequences, whatever it is. There are certain things that are going to set you up for success, and there are certain things that are going to almost guarantee certain failure and sabotage you. And we're going to talk about that on Thursday. And tomorrow, Wednesday, it's my pregnant mommy day, and we are going to be talking about when mommy needs a timeout. Whether it's pregnant mommy with a toddler or pregnant mommy with no other kids or just somebody who needs a timeout when you're the one who needs a timeout. So tune in tomorrow for that. And I really hope you enjoy all the stuff I've curated for you this week because it's really good stuff. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have an amazing Tuesday. Bye.